All right, so one of the issues that I have is my opponent, Steve Scalise, does not inform his constituents in the district of the programs that are available and how he intends to vote. And one of the obstacles is that people will say, I wasn't aware of that. Why did he vote against that? Or why did he vote for something? He's not transparent in that way at all. And that is the exact opposite of how I'm going to approach things. I want people in the district to know every bill that's coming up. And in fact, I'm going to build a website that allows people to give me their opinions. So I can sample large groups of people before I ever make a decision or try to vote. So I think if you're going to represent a district, you've got to maintain that communication and sense of what does the community actually need. So let me ask you about a couple things. There was an amendment in 2015 that would have provided funding to help lower the rate of dropouts in high schools. Now, Steve Scalise voted against that. I imagine that is a program that every school could use. And I believe that this amendment was actually talking about the rural school systems more than the well-funded ones. Because I believe it came down to counselors and the ability to afford counselors in the higher funded school districts that had a direct effect on their dropout rates.
I wasn't aware that there was something on the table for that kind of situation, and counseling is such a huge component of our school systems. I feel like though most of us aren't technically qualified to be counselors, we spend a lot of our time trying to help our students who are experiencing something emotionally that we are not necessarily trained to handle. And we have maybe one counselor or two counselors trying to help hundreds of students. So having a program like that would have been phenomenal to help some of these students kind of figure out what's going on,
Yeah.
where they could get themselves to in life that would enable them to not feel like dropping out was the answer.
Right. And that was something that was available, just so you know, that we cannot utilize now. Another one, expanding technical resources to rural schools. Again, Steve Scalise voted against this. From our talks today, it sounds like that would have been massively beneficial
Right.
to the students.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that almost goes without saying.
I mean, having the newer materials, the newer technical supplies, newer computers, things that they can work on and do their projects on, obviously prepares them better. I mean, if they're going to college or if they're going to a trade school, or even if they're just leaving and going straight into a job, having any sort of technical ability has them better prepared to be a worker.
I actually read this amendment, and it wasn't like every single year they were replacing every single computer and iPad. I mean, some of these items were 6, 7, 8 years old that were barely functioning. 4 or 5 students would have to share it at one time. That's what this was supposed to help.
Yeah, that
Right.
happens very,
Yeah.
you know,
That
and
happens a
after
lot.
a few years, you know, of course, the items start to go haywire, and you start having every third or fourth computer is simply just not working like it should be. That's just the norm. I mean, in any business you have, you know, an office. I mean, imagine how many times you have technical difficulties within the office that has to have you repaired or replaced. Now take a school.
Right.
I mean,
And multiple schools.
multiple schools,
Because
right.
we have IT people, but you have to be able to keep up with enough IT people to service all the schools, and that costs as well.
Yeah.
And I know that those, going back to like your trade stuff, the IT people could make immensely more money working elsewhere than
Sure.
inside of a school district.
Right.
And I come from an IT
Yeah.
background. I worked for a toxicology lab, ran all their equipment. It was pretty much state of the art. Nothing was more than a year old. It all needed to be maintained constantly.
Right.
I could only imagine what, 70, 80, 100 computers throughout an entire school district, what the needs are there, and how much time and resources that would take. And that's a very valid point.
Right.
Those IT individuals could easily
Make more money elsewhere.
double and not end up helping like they should. Because this is something we talked about before, and this might be off subject, but the concept of certification. And with IT, there's always certifications, and that's what made me think of it. One of the things that we talked about in the past was that a lot of the teachers you're talking about who end up leaving get replaced with non-certified teachers. And under the law, they can be in one position for 2 years as a non-certified teacher, and then the school district simply moves them into another position.
If they don't have people who can fill those spots. If we've got this mass exodus of people who are leaving to be paid a higher amount elsewhere, then there are emergency provisions for giving people who are not truly certified, that temporary certification. That's true.
Another quick one. An amendment is to establish grants for early childhood education scholarships. Again, Steve Scalise voted against this. And I think we had just talked about how you would like to see that provided. Did you know that even existed?
I didn't. I just know that giving kids that early start, and I've taught in a Head Start program. So seeing the vast improvements of kids prepared for kindergarten, prepared for school, because they have access to those programs makes such a huge difference. It could be the difference in that child successfully learning to read. And we need to be providing every opportunity for those kids to attend programs like that. And it is sad to me that somebody would vote against something like that.